Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Pop Culture News for Tuesday, January 16th. There's been a resurgence in the interest in the television series Friends since the passing of Matthew Perry. Now, the show has returned to Netflix Top 10, and favorite clips are being shared across social media at an increasing rate. This has fueled a pair of scripts at auction to go for $28,000. Now, the scripts were for a two-part episode that was filmed in England, where the character of Ross, David Schwimmer, was getting married and, of course, says the wrong name during the ceremony. Now, the scripts were supposed to be destroyed originally after the filming, but were recovered from a trash bin and by a member of the staff at Fountain Studios in Wembley when the show was filmed there in 1998. Now, originally believed to be worth about $1,000 each, there was a reported 219 pre-sale bids from all around the world, and the actual auction brought in a lot of international bidders, taking it up to 28,000. So Friends is still quite big in the zeitgeist. Okay, moving on. The question is, has Marvel finally canonized the Netflix series into the MCU? That has been the question since Charlie Cox was brought back as Matt Murdock in Spider-Man No Way Home, and Vincent D'Onofrio returned as Wilson Fisk in the Hawkeye series. Then we got word that both would return for Echo, and that Daredevil Born Again series was in the works, but still, we didn't get an official word on the status of the Defender series. Now, originally the show was written to fit into the MCU timeline and made references to major events in the films while avoiding actually saying characters' names and stuff. It was kind of a weird situation, but it was at a time when Marvel Studios, who made the films, was at odds with Marvel Television. Now, eventually the difference came to a head, and Kevin Feige and the studio were the winners. Then the Disney Netflix deal ended, and Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Defenders, and The Punishers all returned and were put up on Disney+. Now, Feige mentioned how much he liked a few of the actors involved, naming specifically Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, John Bernthal, and Kristen Ritter. While there still has been no official announcement on the series being part of the MCU, when Echo was released on Tuesday, eagle-eyed fans noticed that there was a change in the official timeline order on Disney+, the place you can go and watch the MCU in a chronological order instead of release order. And this change added all of the aforementioned series into the timeline. Now, is this official? I wouldn't swear to it, as they could just as easily be removed from the timeline section. But since it hasn't happened in the week or so since Echo dropped, it's probably a good sign that they are being considered. Plus, Brad Winderbaum, the executive in charge of the television shows, has come out and said that he considers them canon. So maybe that's what we're getting moving forward. All right, sticking with Marvel, reports of Wonder Man's demise are greatly exaggerated. Around May or June of last year, when the WGA strike first began, one of the series that got shut down was Marvel's Wonder Man, which would star Yahya Abdul-Mateen from the Aquaman franchise. He plays Black Manta. Now, the series had just started production. I mean, literally had just opened their offices when it got stopped. And there was a lot of rumors and reports that the series was going to be canceled altogether, especially with the narrative that's been going on about Marvel, doing cutbacks and going for quality over quantity. So a lot of people assumed that Wonder Man was going to get the axe. Well, those reports are turning out to be very wrong, as Wonder Man is now expected to be the second series to be released under the new Marvel Spotlight banner, which debuted with Marvel's Echo. And while no release date has been given, filming has begun and a few set photos have leaked online. Now, we won't be showing those photos, but we will say that they fit into the narrative of the show being a satirical look at Hollywood. And what we see is basically a real movie theater set up to look like the world premiere of the Wonder Man movie, in which stars Abdul Mateen's character of Simon Williams. One of the images also includes a cardboard cutout silhouette of Wonder Man with a lit up red W on his chest, similar to one of the classic costumes from the comics. Now, the series is being put together by Destin Daniel Cretton of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and is expected to also star Ben Kingsley, returning in the role of Trevor Slattery. Okay, again, staying with Marvel, a lot of Marvel news today. Robert Downey Jr. appeared on Rob Lowe's Literally podcast and talked about a variety of things, from his jealousy of Rob Lowe when they were younger to some of the best moments of his career. But one of the things he spoke on was his 11 years playing Tony Stark in the MCU and what happened after his character's death in the Avengers Endgame. Now, the next film he did after putting Stark to rest was the $175 million Doolittle, which was basically a flop. Hitting theaters a month before COVID-19 lockdowns took place, RDJ explained that the film just didn't work, and it humbled him a bit. After the decade of success with Marvel, he told Lowe, "I felt so exposed after being in the cocoon of Marvel, where I think I did some of my best work I will ever do. But it went a little bit unnoticed because of the genre. I did myself a favor because the rug was pulled out so definitively from underneath me, and all the things that I was leaning on as opposed to what my understanding of confidence and security was. Boy, did that evaporate, and it rendered me teachable." Now, the actor recently won a Golden Globe for supporting actor in Oppenheimer and is expected to be nominated for an Oscar in the same role. All right, moving off of Marvel. If you are a fan of R.L. Stine, and more specifically his Fear Street books, the Netflix series that was based off of, well, it was loosely based off of them, is going to continue, as the author actually announced that a film is moving into production. Stein wrote on his social media, "Movie news. I can finally announce that a new Fear Street movie is about to go into production for Netflix. It's based on my Fear Street book, The Prom Queen. Good news." Now, previously, there had been 3 Fear Street films that were released weekly back in 2021, but none of them were based specifically on a novel by Stein. Now, The Prom Queen is the 15th novel in the Fear Street series, and the synopsis reads, "Dance of Death, a spring night, soft moonlight, 5 beautiful prom queen candidates, dancing couples at Shady Side High Prom. These should be the ingredients of romance, but stir in one brutal murder, then another, and another, and the recipe quickly turns to horror. Lizzie McVeigh realizes that someone is murdering the 5 prom queen candidates one by one, and that she may be next on the list. Can she stop the murderer before the dance is over for good?" This was first published in 1992. No release date or anything has been given. And finally, Deadline is reporting that Greg Daniels, the man behind the American version of The Office, is opening up a writer's room specifically to explore the idea of expanding the universe created by the show. Now, originally this was adopted from the British version done by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, but the American version, which were led by Steve Carell and John Krasinski, was about this, similarly, a mockumentary about a paper company. Now, the show became a smash hit, and Daniels is looking at doing something that wouldn't be a reboot. He doesn't want to reboot the show or try to visit the same characters, but rather do a show set in a different office in the same world. Now, if you're hoping for a full-on reunion of the characters from the original, that's not likely going to happen. But it could be possible for some of the characters to appear on a new series if it goes forward. All right, guys, that's the pop culture news for today. Join us later on The Experience for a Minute to Skim It with Miss Jen, producer Kyle, and Jay doing reviews of this week's new comics. And then the Manhunter returns for a new adventure. Have a great evening, and I'll see you on Thursday.